one more new arrival this week, and that is this from Serious Historical Games, which is a new publisher, I believe based out of Belgium, created by designer Philippe Hardy, who is also the designer of this game here. This is The Wars of the Sun King, 1648 to 1713. I love this cover, so evocative of the period. I don't know how many times I need to say it recently because I'm doing so many videos on games set during this period, but late 17th, early 18th century game about King Louis XIV and his reign from 1648 to 1713. This is originally this is a reprint, actually, a re-envisioning of a magazine game that came out in Via Victus several years ago from designer Philippe Hardy. Philippe Hardy has designed a bunch of games for Via Victus. He also did, I believe, the design on, or at least part of the design on Avec Infini Regret, number 4, which I did a new arrival video on recently. That's the Musket and Pike series. So he's kind of got a niche in this particular era. And this is a game focusing on the reign of Louis XIV and his various conflicts, which is actually really cool because I'm reading a lot about that right now. And I saw this game kind of right at the beginning of my sort of reading deep dive, and I was like, well, I have to have that. I don't own the original magazine game, and this is a deluxe boxed version with a mounted map, so I figured I had to get it. So this is what he is calling part of his Lace War series, which is funny because I'm not sure if you realize there is another game system that I think predates this that's also called Lace Wars from Red Sash. And the fact that I have this to hand should give you a hint about what I'm doing right now in my free time. But anyways, so we'll see if it stays called the Lace Wars series. But again, this is that period, that Lace Wars period, if you will, the beginning of the Enlightenment in Western Europe. And just a fantastic cover. So I want to take a quick look at what's inside the box and what you get. It is a fully bilingual game. Here's a scenario book. Here is a rule book here. And here are a bunch of French musketmen with their commander and in line, looks like a battalion, fighting off against what appear to be, would those be Dutch units back over there? So that would make sense because the Franco-Dutch War is one of the scenarios in this game. So the rules, being originally a magazine game, the rules are not terribly complex, although I do think they're, based on what I've seen online, there are some novel concepts here and maybe a little bit of confusion with some of the ways that this game plays out, because it is a strategic scale game. And so this should give you an idea of what this is about. This is a nice little map of all of the different campaign movements of the various armies throughout this period, where in France and the battles took place, where in France they originated from. Here we can see the War of the League of Augsburg, or the 9 Years' War as it's sometimes known, this green campaign. Here you can see what's going on. So really nice map. So you get the rule book in two versions stapled together. You get the French version of the rules, and this goes all the way through to page 14. And that is where the English rules start. So it's, I think, really only about 12 pages of actual rules. Color illustrated. I'm not sure. I haven't read through this yet. There aren't... I don't know if there's an official errata, although there have been some opinions weighed in by the designer on Board Game Geek and a couple of threads about the game. This just came out, by the way, this year, like a couple of months ago. So... But it appears to be pretty well organized with images of all the counters. I'm going to have a read through it because I would like to play this. Probably a better game to play opposed than solo, but there are a couple of learning scenarios that I might do for the channel. And we'll go through that. Attrition and desertion, army movement, and interception. You'll see that it is an area map when we get there. These pages are really hard to turn with one hand because they are on a semi-glossy stock. And I'm just flipping through so you can see consequences of a victorious siege. Objectives, victory. Here are some examples of play, starting on page 22. So actually, really, about 12, not even 12 pages of rules. Maybe only about 8 pages of rules with the examples. So the scenario book is, again, going to be English and French, and this is going to have all of the game scenarios. I believe there are 6 scenarios, including the bonus scenario that came in a Via Victus issue after the game was originally published in Via Victus, and that's called La Fronde. So here we've got some small initiation scenarios, he's calling them. Here's the War of Devolution. This is sort of Louis XIV's first, we'll call it the first war, where he had some claims on some territories. It's going to be a small scenario. I might play that for the channel. Also got the War of the Reunions. This took place between the Anglo-Dutch War, the Franco-Dutch War, and the Nine Years' War. This was kind of like a reassessment of the borders. Again, a small conflict with Spain that wasn't very long, but this actual conflict is what caused the League of Augsburg to form, and that led directly to the 9 Years' War. So these are two small scenarios. Then you've got a scenario for the Franco-Dutch War here, or the Dutch War, sometimes what it's called. This is, the invasion of the Netherlands. This is where the Netherlands flooded. They opened the dikes and flooded Flanders to prevent the French army from taking control. This is the topic of the game No Peace Without Honor, which I have done a video on. That's, again, another strategic scale game about this conflict. So I'm very excited to dig into this and see how this compares and like what the historical modeling is here. There's a scenario for the War of the League of Augsburg, otherwise known as the 9 Years' War, otherwise known as the War of the Grand Alliance. I'm doing a lot of reading about this right now, specifically for Red Sash's Lace Wars. So I'm up to speed a little bit on what happened here, but this, what everyone says, is sort of the prototypical war of Louis XIV. Everyone talked about War of Spanish Succession at the end of his reign, but this is the one where he started as the aggressor and then had to pivot to a defense because the might of Europe was fought against him. And a lot of stuff happened, a lot of battles. Some of the battles in the GMT's musket and bayonet battle system. So like I played Blenheim from that first volume. Well, the Battle of Neerwinden is from this war, and the next game in that series is going to have a battle from that war, Steenkirk. So this one looks like so Ireland is in this, and this one looks like it's a much bigger scenario, as you would expect. It kind of engulfed all of Europe, and then we have the War of the Spanish Succession. This one, I'm most excited to play this one just to see how it models that war. And then, there's a whole random events situation going on here. And then, of course, there's this sort of Prince's Rebellion that happened early in Louis's reign, which is La Fronde. This was an expansion module from Valle Victis, originally for the original game. It is included in the box here. So that is going to be fun to check out as well. That has some special rules that are not found in the core game. There's like a whole dueling princess track between Le Grand Condé and Turenne, I believe, or one of the other nobles. So that's the rule book. Here's the map. We'll spread that out in a moment. You get a single wooden D6. Here are the counters. You get 4 half counter sheets, so 2 full counter sheets. These appear to be the same quality and perhaps even the same printer as the stuff Valle Victis does, which would make sense given his connections there. So we've got some Dutch leaders and what appear to be units or strength points. I'm not sure if it does appear that the unit type matters here because the strength points for artillery are in the upper left versus cavalry and infantry, they're in the lower right, but I'm not sure how much they're interchangeable. Got some of the famous Dutch leaders of the time, Waldeck. Here is Cohorn, the famous Dutch siege engineer commander. Here we have got the Imperial Army of the Holy Roman Empire. We have got Montecuccioli, who is a huge part of the Anglo-Dutch War, I believe. And we've got Prince Eugen of Savoy, who was part of the War of Spanish Succession. Some fortification markers. The art here, it looks like it's done by the same artist who does a lot of the counters for Valle Victis. I forget his name. It's probably on the box, but I'll have to add a little note here about who that's going to be. Looks like control markers. These appear to be, I don't know what they are. Objectives. Got some leader counters there. Diplomacy. Looks like diplomatic markers. So this is game state markers. And then here we have got a bunch of the rest of the allies. So more Imperial units, Bavarians, Swedes. These look to be Irish, Spanish, Danes, or Swiss. No, this would be Danes probably. This down here we have got, this looks like it is... I know that symbol, and I'm blanking on it. Someone who's watching this can help me. I want to say this is Lorraine, but I could be wrong about that. This might be Lorraine. Yeah, Charles IV. The yellow one's Lorraine. This one I am struggling with. Here, okay, these are Savoy, not Danish. So we've got Victor Amadeus, Victor Amadeus here. Although these might be Danish. These are definitely Savoy troops. Got minor generals. We've got, who's this? This is James II. Okay, so the game is going to cover James II and William III's conflict in Ireland, which is cool. And the last counter sheet here, we have the French and the famous French leaders of the time, the Duke of Luxembourg, Villars, Vauban, the famous French siege engineer, Turenne, Condé, Louis XIV himself, bunch of minor generals, and then here we have the British, the Duke of Marlborough. Interestingly, no William. Is he on the back of the Duke? No, he's not. So these are all your counters. They're nice. They're, you know, they're of, I would say, a middle thickness, and they should punch quite easily. And then you get some baggies. So let's open the map. Here we have the map for the game. So as you can see, covers basically all of Western Europe for this period, which is awesome. It's an area movement map. The different areas on the map, they have a nice texture, but they also have indicator icons here. It looks like gold symbols here will give you possibly the ability to earn income or more campaign points, something like that. That is Lorraine, as I correctly identified there. Let's see if we can find that other flag on here. This goes all the way to Italy, by the way. You've got Tuscany, Naples, independent city-states, Parma, Genoa, Modena, Milan. Here's Savoy. So that's Piedmont, Savoy there. You go all the way to Spain. You've got, Portugal. Okay, there it is. It's the Kingdom of Portugal. Duh, I've seen that before. So you have Portuguese units in the game as well. That'll be important for the 9 Years' War and the War of Spanish Succession mostly. France is a huge part of it. They're right at the center. And then you've got the Holy Roman Empire, Bavaria, the various German principalities. Saxony is over there. Do we have Hanover in here somewhere? No, doesn't look like it. That's interesting. Hanover should be somewhere in this general. This is Köln. Got the Dutch provinces, Holstein, so not Denmark, but Holstein, part of, I guess you could consider it part of Denmark, I guess. And then we've got the year track. So this is going to show you the game covers from 1648 to 1713. The La Fronde was 1648 to 1653. And then in 1667, we have the War of Devolution. Probably play this as a little intro scenario. The Dutch War here. And then you can see the War of the Reunions, and the 9 Years' War goes all the way this way, and then the War of Spanish Succession. So a lot of content in this game. The map is very beautiful. I don't typically like area maps, but for a strategic game like this, I do think it could work quite well. I did also, in the box, discover, when I unfolded the map, a couple more things you get with the game. So you get a couple of display cards for the various generals in the game. So if you don't want to play with giant stacks of counters on the map, you can play with these display cards. You've got one that's got some of the Allies and the French. You've got another one that contains only the Allies, the various Allies of the period, along with a reserve. You've got a sort of player aid, sequence of play, talking about the game turn. So on the left side, you got the game turn, what happens in each phase. And then here, spending resource points. So this is what I think these gold symbols are. You're going to spend RPs to take actions during the game. So it's a very strategic, campaign-focused type of game. This is English and French, one on each side. I think these are also, these are one-sided. Okay, so English and French, that's nice. You've got this diplomacy table. This is a key part of winning the game. There's, peace treaty. This is where all the peace treaty markers look like they're going to go. So, if you're going to be fighting versus trying to have some side try and go to peace with one camp or the other, you get glory points. Again, one of the big things about this period is that the nobles, when they prosecuted a war, were after glory, which is like this concept of like the glory of the nation can be achieved by fighting its enemies and achieving victory, which then reflects nicely on the nobility and the royals. We have the alliance table here, so there's a diplomatic aspect to this game, which is, of course, very important for this period. And then the prince's table between Condé and Turenne. Aha, I got it right. So this is for La Fronde scenario. Don't know how that works, but looks like there's loyalty to one side or the other. This is double-sided as well, English-French. We have got 2 player aid cards for combat results on one side, losses, battle markers, this is an optional rule, and then attrition and desertion, along with cabinet strategy, movement, and siege markers. So you get 2, one in English on one side, one in French on one side. So you'll probably want to have these near the table for both players. Would have been nice if there were 2. There are 2. I am mistaken. So so we've got, let's see. Okay, so there's actually 3 player aids, and they're both French-English. So we've got a siege table, this and a siege scale counter. We've got an attrition and desertion table, along with cabinet strategy and movement. And we have got a combat results table and losses table, along with some optional rules. So 3 player aids, French and English, to play the game. So there's 7 of these sheets all told. Plus, this map and the counters, and I'm very excited to get this on the table because I would like to see how a French slash Belgian designer approaches this concept. Typically, we hear about this period mostly from the coalition perspective, especially in English-speaking countries, Duke of Marlborough, the Anglo-Allied alliances and whatnot. And so I'm actually reading a book right now about the French perspective of this whole period, and it's kind of interesting to see the differences between how the French viewed their roles in these wars versus the way that sort of the rest of Western Europe viewed their roles in these wars. But either way, it's a very interesting period. Wars of the Sun King, new from serious historical games. I will have a report on this when I get to play it. I'm super immersed in the period, as I said, and we're definitely going to play it, get it to the table soon.